All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on this Taco Tuesday. I don't know what it's like where you live, but here in Tampa, burr. In the words of Gucci Mane, burr. It's cold here. It's cold. Not only is it cold, but we're not getting any of that Florida sunshine. We're not getting any of that warmth from the sky. We're getting a bunch of raindrops on top of the cold. It sucks. It sucks, everyone. Appreciate everybody joining me, though. I see a lot of folks turning up and ready to turn out on this NBA slate. I think we got 9 games tonight. A nice chunky size NBA slate. Hopefully some of you found your way to some money last night. We landed on some picks that ended up doing well. All right, but not all of them did well. Of course, not everything's going to hit all the time. Those Phoenix Suns props that we were on, though, with Ayton and Jay Crowder, I posted that in the chat just a moment ago. Devin Booker over rebounds hit. Chris Paul over rebounds hit. Cam Johnson, who was a controversial one because he's been kind of cold since coming back into the Phoenix Suns rotation, that one hit as well. So we did have some hits. Like I said, not everything hit, but we did have some ones that we discussed live yesterday on the show that ended up working out. So appreciate everybody for joining me. We're going to run it back again. We've got more options. Yesterday's slate, pretty ugly. There was lots of news that shook things up. Will this guy play? Will that guy play? We weren't sure, right? We had a lot of question marks leading into tip-off. So for me, I went light yesterday. I got burned by Darius Garland, like a lot of you did. The 17.5-point prop, it looked great because Garland had been balling. He'd been doing his thing. But last night, not so much. He struggled. He struggled big time against the New York Knicks. Now, I ended up looking up something after the fact. And sad to say it was after the fact. But you go Darius Garland, points versus Knicks logs. And like I said, ended up looking at this after the fact. So despite the discount of 17.5 points, you can kind of see historically just been a dude who struggled against the New York Knicks. He's just been a guy who has struggled against the Knicks, unfortunately. So I'll probably go back to Darius Garland in the future. I threw that poll up there. I wanted to see how you guys were reacting. Darius Garland's still that dude for me. I'm not going away from Darius Garland. I'll go back to my man, Garland. All right? One bad night doesn't ruin it for me. And you know me, man. You know me. When a guy comes off of a flop, I go back. I go back to his prop. So I will definitely have some Darius Garland here in the near future. But last night, Darius Garland, sad to say it, sold us all. Sold us all. If you took the over on Darius Garland, ouch. Another thing that was kind of interesting about this promo, this discount, I guess you could call it, on Darius Garland, the fact that they let us get up to $50 in on it. Now, for me, that was a little concerning. I'm like, all right, normally they go $20, $25. Why are they letting us get $50 on Darius Garland tonight? What was up with that? It had me thinking a little bit about it. And after I locked my entries in and I realized, man, I've got Darius Garland in 3 entries. I only played 3 entries last night. Had him in every one of them. I realized, man, this just doesn't feel right. It feels like a trap. And sure enough, my spidey sense, it went tingling. And Darius Garland was a little bit of a trap. He got me. He got a lot of us. So shout out to everybody up in the chat this morning. Obviously, we got Magic up in here. He's here every single day almost. King Chris, love to see it. Patreon member, shout out to you. Desmond's in the building. Goat's up in here. Aaron Rodgers, he's back again every single morning. Mr. Aaron Rodgers is here. Mac B says, let's get it. Smash that like button. Shout out to the Discord and Patreon family. He highly suggests it. That's my man, Mac B. Daniel Hernandez, good to see you. He's here almost every day as well. Emmanuel, always here, as he says. Chris Smith says he won big last night thanks to Cam Johnson. Yeah, Cam Johnson had a nice game. I think he went over his PRA, his points, rebounds, and assists. He also covered his 3-point makes. So Cam Johnson did a little bit of everything in an increased role with Jay Crowder out of the lineup. So we'll put last night's debacle of Darius Garland and his poor shooting performance against the Knicks behind us. And the matchup actually looked pretty good on paper. That's the crazy part, because I remember us talking about him at his original point prop. And we were like, man, 20.5 points, I think it was, looks pretty good, right? Because we go to the last 7 games, we go to the point guard position, and we go down to the New York Knicks. They were giving up about 25.9 points per game, a top 10 most giving team to the point guard position when it comes to points. But I guess historically, Darius Garland's just not that dude when it comes to facing the New York Knicks. Has only covered 1 time in his short-lived career. Bad shooting night. We'll chalk it up to that. Carlos, good call. NXT waterfowl. I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what a waterfowl is, but I don't know what the NTX waterfowl. I don't know what that means, but that sounds cool. Let's get this money. I agree with you. Omarion. Love to see that. Taco Tuesday. Yes, indeed. If you're not familiar with PrizePicks Taco Tuesday format, listen. They're going to give us a couple of discounted player props. They've already given us one. It was a CSGO prop. Hopefully you guys caught that one and paired it with something that ends up hitting, because if you did, you're going to win some money today. You're going to win some money today. Looking at these other guys here. My man Don P, who's in Discord, Patreon, all the stuff. He's in all the things that we're about. He says that the Patreon community is better than good, and hopefully we can gain another for free. Shout out to Who Dat, Boss Max 74, B-Dog 137. Y'all good. All right. Love it, man. Love to hear the community uplifting and shouting out other community members. So yeah, Jacob TX is saying that Boros, the CSGO Taco Tuesday prop that we got, has covered. So that's pretty sweet. Silky Johnson's ready to get the bread. I love that name, Silky Johnson. Zach's back up in the building. Love to see it. Brian E, good morning to you. Anthony Taylor leaving the flame emojis. He's ready for some hot fire. Some hot fire. Jordan S says Garland assists only from now on. Oh, man. You think? You think we give up on Garland that quick after one bad night? I don't know, man. I ain't giving up on him. Jacob's also saying that Nadal hit his prop. Won some nice money yesterday. Brandon, good morning to you. Kenlin, Booker, and Cam came through in the clutch. Yes, they did. Ethan says Luca PRA. He's already talking some props. We'll get to those in just a moment. Minute. Trill Fate says, I took Garland under fantasy. It was a very low implied total versus the slow-paced Knicks. Yeah, I agree. I looked at that total too, and I was like, it doesn't feel good, but it's a discount. And they got me, man. Hook, line, and sinker. They got me. They got a lot of us. But yeah, the first taco was a good one. Just scrolling through here. Joe Dino says, New York, we here. Good morning to Curry the Goat. Good morning to you as well. B-Dog Hardy says, I told everyone Garland's assists were free. Listen, he did. True that. He definitely did. All right, gang. Shout out to everybody that I didn't get a chance to say hello to. We got to get down to business. We got 9 NBA games to talk about. We're going to be looking at them over here on PrizePicks, my favorite way to play daily fantasy sports. The only site I play my favorite NBA player props on is PrizePicks. So if you want to join PrizePicks, it's a great time to do so. 100% instant deposit match still going down. It's still happening. If you haven't joined PrizePicks yet, use promo code Curry. You see it floating above my head every single day when I go live. There's a link down in the description below. If it's easier for you to just click the link, do that. But either which way, you deposit all the way up to $100. They're going to match dollar for dollar, making your first entry on PrizePicks completely risk-free. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these player props. Let's dig into the matchups first. For that, we use Number Fire. Nice little layout here. Love the way they have things organized. Makes it nice and easy to just kind of scroll through. So 7 p.m., Charlotte Hornets at the Toronto Raptors. Battle of a couple of Eastern Conference teams. 222.5 implied point total. Lots of points on the board. 3.5 point spread. So the game's going to be high scoring, and it looks like it's going to stay close and competitive. Things that we like when we are here to target overs. Gordon Hayward, game time decision. Keep an eye out on him. Over on the other side for the Raptors, we've got Dragic and Khem Birch, both ruled out. So those are the big ones there. So loving the total from that game, loving the spread from that game. 7 p.m. Clippers at Wizards. 219.5 point total. This game, surprisingly, a 4-point spread. I thought the Clippers, being as bad as they've been lately, maybe the spread would be a little bit bigger, but it's not. It looks like it's going to be another one of those pretty good high-scoring games with a competitive spread. So hopefully it stays close. No Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, obviously. The Wizards pretty much back to 100%, man. They got everybody back that's been out for a while now. So they're running at full speed. So nobody's sitting out for Washington that means anything. So loving the total, loving the spread here. And I think that's kind of the theme today. There's going to be a lot of games with good totals and a good close spread. So I think a lot of these games are going to be in play for me. Now, the other night, Denver and Detroit played one another. I ended up taking a couple of first half only props on this game. And the ones that I took, Nikola Jokic over first half fantasy points, Cade Cunningham over first half fantasy points. Both ended up hitting. So here we are again. A different day, but the same team, same matchup. 216.5 point total, 7-point spread in favor of the visiting team, the road team, the Denver Nuggets. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams, nothing too over the top, nothing too different. And as far as injury news goes, going to be the same cast of characters that they had the other night. So this one with a 7-point spread, teetering on the line of potentially maybe being a blowout. But the last time they played, just one game ago, this game did end up staying close and competitive for 4 quarters. So maybe things change tonight, maybe not. Maybe it's more of the same and we just have a continuation of what happened the other night. We'll have to wait and see on that one. 7:30 p.m. brings us the Los Angeles Lakers at the Brooklyn Nets. Listen, big news from this game over on the Lakers side. Yes, it's true. The Brow, Anthony Davis, back in the lineup for the Los Angeles Lakers. They now have their big three, if they're still worth calling that, if they're still worthy of the title big three. The big three is back together. I'm talking Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, all in the lineup tonight for the Los Angeles Lakers. Now it's a shame. It's a shame that we're not going to get Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving for the Brooklyn side of things. But it will be a fun game nonetheless. We got 227.5 implied point total with just a 2-point spread. Lots of points expected to be scored here. The game looks like it's going to stay close and competitive. I'm going to probably take the wait and see approach here for the Lakers side of things. With Anthony Davis entering the mix, the chemistry of the team is sure to change drastically. And I'm just not sure that I want to have my money out there trying to guess what's going to happen. I'd like to give it a couple of games. That's just my approach. But if you guys feel a different way about it, listen, it's a good game to probably target some overs if you feel like you've got a good read on what will happen. Moving it down here, 7:30 p.m. Sacramento Kings at the Boston Celtics, 220.5 point total, 9-point spread in favor of the home team, the Boston Celtics. Now this is a game for me, I gotta put it in a first half only format. I think it'll be a fun game to target if you're looking to play some props from this game. No problem there. I think it could be a good one. I just worry that Boston, being fully healthy now, might blow this team out. Sacramento, not very good, right? So for me, first half only play. Nice total, but the spread puts it in the danger zone for me. Keep an eye on De'Aaron Fox. He's probably the biggest piece of injury news here. If he is out, well then, we got to fire up my man Terrence Davis II. He goes bonkers. That dude has the ultimate green light. I think Alvin Gentry is just like, go on, young man. Just go out there and go wild. So if De'Aaron Fox is out, I'd be interested to see if we get Terrence Davis up on the PrizePicks board. He's low-key crazy, y'all. When it comes to fantasy points, he does everything. I mean, just jacks them up. He doesn't care. Anyway, 8 p.m., San Antonio Spurs at the Houston Rockets. Another great game here. 233.5 point total, 4.5-point spread. This one right here looks like it might have the highest total of any of the games on the board. You've got DeJounte Murray going up against a Houston Rockets team that is not very good defensively. Loving the matchup for him. Jakob Poeltl should be in a pretty good spot against Christian Wood, and vice versa. Christian Wood against the Spurs. I mean, there's a lot to like about this game. And it looks like it's going to be one of those ones that'll be up-tempo, high speed, back and forth, lots of shots going up, lots of fantasy points, and all those other things being scored. So I like this game a lot too. 10 p.m. late night games. We're starting to get into the later night games here. Minnesota T-Wolves at the Portland Trailblazers. Now, at the end of the last game of the Minnesota Timberwolves played in, we were kind of worrying what was going on with Anthony Edwards. Would he be okay? He had to be carried off with an ankle injury. So I guess they're saying he's not on the injury report and he should be in the starting lineup for Minnesota, despite having to be carried off by 2 trainers with a towel over his head. It didn't look good. But I guess he's all right, man. He's he's not human. He's different, right? Anthony Edwards is different. So he's going to be in the lineup. Nothing to worry about there. 231.5 point total. Love that. 3-point spread. Love that as well. Out for the Blazers. Obviously, Damian Lillard still out. Larry Nance Jr. still out. Otherwise, pretty much full go for Portland. Moving it down here to 10 p.m., Dallas Mavericks at the Golden State Warriors. We'll have Luka Doncic, kind of the new class, versus Steph Curry, kind of one of the guys that's maybe one of the old class, we'll say, the old guard, right? New school versus kind of turning into the old school, right? Steph Curry's been around a while. So this will be a fun matchup. Not a very high total, though. 211.5 points. 211.5 on the board. 4-point spread in favor of the Golden State Warriors. But we know Golden State has been struggling lately. They've been struggling lately. I don't know what to expect from this game. The Mavericks might come out and surprise and shock the Golden State Warriors. They might come out and jump all over them. I don't know. We just have to see which Golden State team's going to show up. Still no Draymond Green for Golden State. No Andre Iguodala. No Wiseman. Klay Thompson's considered a game-time decision as of right now. So keep an eye on his injury status. Obviously, that would be the biggest piece of injury news. And then I don't know why this game is all the way down here at the bottom, but this one tips off at 7 p.m. The New Orleans Pelicans at the Philadelphia 76ers, 216-point total, 8.5-point spread in favor of Philadelphia. For me, first half only play. And we know Joel Embiid has been on one lately. If you're going to play anybody first half, Joel Embiid's points have been really nice. I haven't looked at the prop yet, but if it's 14.5, maybe even 15.5 going up against Jonas Valanciunas and the New Orleans Pelicans on the second half of a back-to-back, you might be able to twist my arm and say Joel Embiid over 14.5 or 15.5 first half points. All right. But for me, this whole game here, going to be a first half only play. Keep an eye on Brandon Ingram. Game time decision at the moment. Not sure if he's in or out. Over on the Philadelphia side, both Seth Curry and Danny Green already ruled out. No Shake Milton, no Ben Simmons. Obviously, their backcourt kind of thin. It's going to be Maxey and Tybal. Tybal is also a game time decision. So keep an eye on the injury news for this one. But as of right now, first half only game for me. Embiid's at 15.5. Listen, I ain't mad at that, man. 14.5 or 15.5. I think he could get it done. All right, so that's the breakdown, right? We ran through all the games, talked about what's happening tonight. Definitely got to keep an eye on the injury news. We got to stay on top of things. That's going to be big. It was big last night. We had a lot of question marks. I did not feel super comfortable because it was like 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we were still waiting on a bunch of news to come out. So take your time. I wouldn't jump in and rush any of your entries. Try to wait for as much news as you can, and then start locking some stuff in. All right, so let's look at the last 10 games as far as the point props go. Let's see who's been hitting or covering the over on their point prop at a high percentage. Let's go figure it out, guys. Listen, I'm not going to talk about him just because he's not the sexiest name on the board, but Jared Vanderbilt at 7.5 points. I'm not going to get too deep on this guy. I'm not going to go too deep on this one. 7.5 points. All right. Last 10 games, 80% hit rate. We look at the last 5 games, 80% hit rate. He's averaging 8.2 points per game. Like I said, not a household name. Not a guy that's going to get a lot of shot attempts. That's why I don't want to talk about him too much. Like maybe he finds his way to 4 buckets or 8 points. And he's done 9, 10, 10, and 8 in his last 5 games. So he's worth mentioning because over the last 10 games, over the last 5 games, he's actually covering his prop at a very high clip. Very high clip. He's going up against Portland today. Their interior defense has not been very good this season. Not been great. But against power forwards, especially, they do better. Better against power forwards than centers, we'll say that. Giving up about 16 points per game to the power forward position. When we look at the center position, they give up a lot more points to centers, about 24 to 25 points per game. So maybe Karl Anthony Towns is the move, but listen, Jared Vanderbilt's been getting it done. He's been getting it done, as ugly as the name may sound. Leaving my lips, Jared Vanderbilt. He's worth talking about just because he has shown a competency at getting it done. 8.6 projected points. Now, on a number of different books, we're seeing some mixed signals, mixed action here. Some sites, they're betting the over. Some sites, they're betting the under. Do you feel comfortable with Jared Vanderbilt with the 80% hit rate in the last 10, 80% hit rate in the last 5. I don't know. Listen, I'm just pointing him out. I wanted to talk about him quickly, highlight him quickly, because he has been getting the job done. Now, a guy that I feel a little bit more comfortable playing in terms of somebody that I know who's going to take shots and get buckets. Bradley Beal. Now, since he's returned to the lineup back on January 17th, 22.5 points has been very hit or miss. He's 50% in his last 4 games since returning to the lineup for the Wizards. Now, if we look at the last 10 games for Bradley Beal, 22.5 points, 70% hit rate at 22.5. So let's look at the matchup for Beal. Like I said, I use hit rates to kind of filter things out, to narrow down the slate a little bit. You shouldn't just look at hit rates as the way that you decide on whether you should pick a player prop or not. Should you take the over under? You shouldn't just use hit rates. All right. Which is why we look at things like DVP. We want to look at the matchup here against the Clippers. How many points per game over the last 7 games have the Clippers given up to opposing shooting guards? Look, they're the first fewest, giving up the first fewest points per game over the last 7 games to shooting guards, 15.4 points. So we've got a 50% hit rate since returning back to the lineup for the Wizards. We're going up against the Clippers, who are giving up the first fewest points at just 15.4 points per game over the last 7 games. Maybe he's an underplay tonight. Maybe he's a candidate for an underplay. We talk a lot about overs here, but looking at this matchup, he could be an underplay. Now, I like to look at the point guard position as well, because point guards, shooting guards, a lot of these teams, these players are interchangeable. We go all the way back down to the bottom once again. They're giving up the second fewest points to the point guard position. So the Clippers, their defense, pretty darn stingy when it comes to holding opposing backcourts down in the points category. So maybe Bradley Beal's an underplay. We talk a lot about the overs, but he could be a candidate for an under option here. Let's go and look at his projection. Got him projected for 26.5 points. Now, worth mentioning, 4 different sports books here. We're seeing him at 22.5 points on some sites. I'm even seeing a 23.5 number for him. At 22.5, people are taking the over right now on Bradley Beal at 22.5. And he's coming off of a bad game. So maybe it's a bounce back for Bradley Beal. I'm just saying his last 4 games have been kind of hit or miss, up and down. Not been the most consistent player since returning to this lineup for the Wizards. He's going up against a team that is very good at limiting points to opposing backcourts. So he could be an option for an underplay, despite what the projections say. We've liked Bradley Beal here recently. I get it. But the matchup looks tough on paper. But that's just on paper. Jordan S. is saying that Bradley Beal's PRA may be better. That could be true. Maybe collect some rebounds, maybe collect some assists. We'll definitely take a look at some PRA. We'll look at some PRA for sure. Jalen Brunson, another guy that we should definitely make mention of, at 13.5 points. At 14.5 points, he has covered his point prop in 60% of his last 10 games. At 13.5, we're getting a little bit of a value play here. 1 point cheaper. 1 point less on PrizePicks. Another great reason why you should be playing more point props over on PrizePicks. Take advantage, man. Promo code Curry, that 100% instant deposit match. Anyway, Brunson over the last 5 games has hit in 3 out of 5, 60% hit rate, averaging 14.6 points per game. So I thought maybe he'd take a little bit of a step back with Luka, with Porzingis back in the lineup. But he's been doing all right. Not bad. Not bad for Jalen Brunson. We'll look at both point guard and shooting guard positions against the Golden State Warriors and kind of get an idea how many points per game they're allowing to both positions. So starting things off at the point guard spot, Golden State giving up just 18.6 points per game. That's the 3rd fewest over the last 7 games. Very tough matchup if you're a point guard. Now Brunson, kind of hard to peg him as a point guard or shooting guard. So let's look at the shooting guard spot as well. Golden State giving up about 21.2 points per game to shooting guards, which puts them like right in the middle of the pack, right in the middle of the league. Kind of an average matchup if you're a shooting guard versus the Warriors in the point column. All right, so let's go pull a projection up for him then and see what action projections say for Mr. Jalen Brunson. They got him at 17.2 points tonight. So kind of like Beal. Not the greatest matchup on paper, but the projections love him. almost 4 points higher at 17.2 versus the 13.5. And yes, as I mentioned before, we are getting a point of value here on PrizePicks. In other words, 13.5 on PrizePicks, 14.5 everywhere else you can play player props. So that's worth something, right? The 1 point of value. Those 1 point edges in our favor can definitely be a difference maker. So maybe you go Jalen Brunson. We talked about kind of being down on Bradley Beal. Let's just say for fun, right, that maybe it is a down night for Bradley Beal. Well, then who's going to step up? We know that the Clippers are good against both shooting guards and point guards, right? So maybe we cross Beal and Dinwiddie off of our list when it comes to overs. Well, that would mean somebody like Kyle Kuzma or the guy I'm about to talk about, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, might step up. Now, KCP, since Bradley Beal's been back in the lineup, he's been very inconsistent when it comes to covering 10.5 points. If we look at the larger scope here, 10 games, 60% hit rate. I'm just saying he might be worth considering if you think that the backcourt gets clamped down, Dinwiddie and Beal. Somebody's going to have to score some points. Maybe it's him. At 10.5 points over the last 5 games, he's only covered this once. So the hit rate's not looking great here. But let's look at the matchup. Caldwell-Pope filling in as the small forward here. Now it's worth mentioning him because Clippers are giving up over 23 points per game to opposing small forwards, which is a top 10 number. One of the most giving in the NBA over the last 7 games to the small forward position. So KCP, maybe, listen, I'm throwing it out there. I'm just presenting the numbers to you guys. Maybe he's the guy that steps up for the Wizards tonight. If the backcourt for Washington struggles, maybe Caldwell-Pope finds himself getting a few extra shots and a few extra buckets as a result. Looking up his projection here on Action Labs, I got him at 11.3, putting him barely over 10.5. Now, across 4 different sites, 3 out of the 4 has him at 10.5 points. Out of 3 of those sites, the ones that have him at 10.5, betting favorite at minus 130, minus 126 odds to cover this 10.5 number. But I'm also seeing him at 11.5. So some lines makers out there believe that 11 to 12 points is within reach for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope given the matchup. But at 11.5 points, he's a betting favorite to go under. So he's due for a little bit of a resurgence, a little bit of a bounce back at some spot, at some point. Maybe it's tonight. I'm just throwing it out there. I understand why you guys can't play KCP. Trusting KCP is like trusting Jared Vanderbilt in a way. But at least Vanderbilt's got a decent hit rate, right? The matchup does look good for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Doesn't look so good for Dinwiddie and Beal. All right, enough about the points, though. Let's switch it up. Let's go to some rebounds. We've got a lot of different props to talk about. We've got to keep it moving here. Thank you so much for everybody who's joining me. Swig of water for me while I'm drinking. You guys are liking, right? Hit the like button. Appreciate all the support. Let's move on to some rebound props. Over the last 10 games, Bradley Beal's been a guy that we've liked in terms of rebounds. Somebody already mentioned it. PRA could be in play for Beal tonight. If you don't trust the points, which I can't blame you, looking at this matchup against the Clippers doesn't look like an easy one. Maybe you go PRA on Beal. Maybe you just take his rebounds. Over the last 10 games, 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 games. He has hit this 4.5 rebound number. So a 70% hit rate. And then it gets even better over the last 5 games. He's hit in 80% of his games. Okay? So we're seeing some pretty strong numbers here for Beal. He's showing a competency when it comes to covering 4.5 rebounds, which is why hit rates are important. All right, so let's go look at this matchup here. He's obviously a 2 guard. We're looking at rebounds and the Clippers. Clippers are giving up 7.6 rebounds per game to the shooting guard spot. That's the 3rd most, guys. The matchup on paper looking a lot better for rebounds for Beal than it does points. Okay, DVP we're talking about here. They're giving up the 3rd most rebounds per game to the shooting guard spot. Now, just for fun, let's look at the point guard spot because I'm always interested. Still up there around the top 6, actually the 6th most rebounds per game to the point guard spot. So both Beal and Dinwiddie, I think, could be in play for some rebounds. But especially Beal, who's shown a high hit rate over the last 10 and 5 game spans. So let's go ahead and take a look at Beal's rebound prop here. I got him projected for 4.8, which is obviously more than 4.5. So that's a good lean toward the over. And then 3 different books, 3 different sites. He's a betting favorite to cover 4.5 boards. So for me, I think I'm liking some Beal rebounds more than I am points, considering the matchup. But maybe you take the PRA too. We'll talk about PRA in just a moment. Another guy who's been getting the job done on the boards, not somebody you typically think of. He's not up on the PrizePicks board today. Jalen Brunson, 3.5 rebounds, 70% hit rate. So maybe that's why we're not getting him up on the board, huh? The hit rate's just too juicy. Too juicy. How about Kyle Kuzma? Do we trust Kuz? It's been a little rough here lately for Kuzma. That Washington Wizards front court has gotten a whole lot more healthy, right? Thomas Bryant's back. Rui Hachimura's back. Montrezl Harrell's back. You got Gafford still in the mix. You got Davis Bertans in the mix. So I don't know that Kyle Kuzma is necessarily in play. Now you look at the last 10 games, the reason he's popping up here is because he's covered in 7 out of 10. But since Beal's gotten back on January 17th, he's just 1 out of 3. 6 and 7 rebounds. So his rebounds are way down. We'll just quickly go through this one because I'm already getting bad vibes about it. But the small forward position, we consider Kyle Kuzma to be what, the 3 or the 4? We'll call him the power forward because like KCP, he's kind of the 3 spot, right? Against the Clippers, they're giving up the first fewest rebounds per game to opposing power forwards. I think Kuzma could be another guy who's in play for an under. Going up against the Clippers team, giving up the first fewest rebounds per game, less than 8 rebounds allowed per game. This could be another under option. Like I said, we talk plenty about overs. We don't talk enough about unders. If you're wanting to consider an under, this guy is on a 2-game skid, 6 rebounds against Brooklyn, 7 against Boston, and now he's facing the team giving up the first fewest rebounds per game to power forwards. So maybe Kuzma is one you should consider as an underplay. The unders be hitting, y'all. They do hit. Unders are very viable. Listen, I got him projected for 7.3 rebounds. He's at 8.5 boards across 3 different sites. On all 3 of those sites, people are betting the under at 8.5 boards. Do not let the high hit rates over the last 10 games fool you. His numbers are starting to come down, especially in the last 2 games, with all of the healthy bodies in the Washington Wizards front court. All right, don't be afraid to take some unders once in a while. They hit too. The unders, they need love too. And we talked about one for you. Said, good morning. Ben, you're liking the under for Kuzma rebounds? Listen, could be a play, man. Could be a play. If you guys have any plays that you're absolutely loving or liking, and you want me to research them, hold off to the end of the show. I'll try to get to as many of them as possible. If you want your play to be a guaranteed pick or play for me to talk about, Super Chat is an option for you. Plus, it helps support me as a content creator. So definitely use Super Chat if you've never used it before. Like I said, it will highlight your comment. It's a surefire way. I prioritize Super Chats over everything. All right, so you can do that at the end of the show. Let's go ahead and take a look at some more rebound props. Do we want to go Patty Mills rebounds? He's not up on the board, but at 2.5 rebounds, maybe you could get him on another site. 70% hit rate at just 2.5 boards. We already talked about no Kyrie, no KD. Patty Mills at 2.5 rebounds could definitely be a good look. Another guy that we can talk about, is DeJounte Murray at 8.5 boards. DeJounte Murray, 8.5 rebounds, 60% hit rate. And then we look at his last 3 games. He has hit in 3 straight, pulling in 10, 12, and 9 rebounds, respectively. He's going up against the Houston Rockets tonight. We already talked about the total on this game being sky high. And it's going to be close and competitive, according to the Vegas lines makers anyway. So Murray could be in a good spot to cover his rebound prop once again. He's Mr. Do-It-All. He's the Swiss Army knife of the San Antonio Spurs. You need buckets, he's got them. You need rebounds, he'll get them. You need assists, he'll dish those out too. DeJounte Murray, Mr. Do-It-All. So let's look at this matchup here against the Houston Rockets. Houston giving up the 4th most rebounds per game to opposing point guards at 7.7 boards. So for me, it's more about where they fall in line and less about the number. Murray's got 10 and 12 rebound upside. He's shown that over the last 5 games. So he could definitely be a play here for rebounds or assists. They're giving up 9.2 assists per game or points at 26. So PRA could be in play for DeJounte Murray. Fantasy points could be in play for DeJounte Murray. Okay. Let's go pull a projection up for Murray. He's 8.5 on PrizePicks. Got him projected for 8.7. A little bit concerning is the fact that the betting public are putting down their cold, hard cash. They're putting their money down on the under at 8.5 boards for some reason. Now, one way that you can kind of take your research a step further here, you can go StatMuse. StatMuse makes it easy to go DeJounte Murray versus Rockets logs. And you can kind of get an idea. One previous matchup from this season, my man had 32 points, 10 rebounds, and 11 assists while racking up 3 steals against this Houston Rockets team. And that was just 13 days ago. Everything's in play for DeJounte Murray today. 32 points, 10 boards, 11 assists, and 3 steals. Yes, all the DeJounte Murray that you could possibly want is in play today. All right, we talked about some rebounds. Let's switch it up. We'll go to the assist prop. I have a feeling that DeJounte Murray's name will probably come up here as well. Swig of water between prop plays. Got to stay hydrated out on these streets, man. Got to stay hydrated. All right. While we've got DeJounte Murray up, let's just go ahead and cover his assists if he's up on the board. He is. He's at 9 assists today. I think you're going to find him at about 9.5 on most sports books out there. 3 straight games for Murray, though. 14, 10, and 12 dimes. He's covered in all 3 of those games. He's gone for 9 or more assists in 4 out of the last 5 games. That's an 80% hit rate at 9 or better. 9.8 assists per game. We talked about the previous matchup against the Rockets just a little under 2 weeks ago. He drops 11 dimes on the Rockets. And the Rockets, in terms of this matchup here, giving up a healthy amount of assists, 9.2 dimes per game. That is a top 10 most assists given up to point guard number. So great matchup here for Murray across the board against the Houston Rockets. I don't think I have to tell you that. Houston's not a very good team, right? Sorry for all you Houston Rockets fans. But, I'm a Magic fan, and we're not a very good team either. So, nothing against Houston. 9.5 assists across 3 different books, 3 different sites. Betting favorite to go under, though, on all of them, which is why PrizePicks has him down at 9. At 9, I think I'm willing to take the over here, and maybe he lands on 9 and we end up tying or pushing. But I think there's a good chance for him to go over 9 as well. He's shown the ability to do this just 2 weeks ago, the last time he faced Houston. And he's coming off of 14, 10, and 12. Okay? DeJounte Murray. Enough said about him. You're saying he's at 9.5 now? Let's refresh. Let's refresh the page. You're telling me that those what's at PrizePicks bump. Oh, they did. Son of a biscuit. 9.5 assists. It's true, folks. My man Murray's up to 9.5 assists. Are we still feeling good about the over at 9.5, being that the push has been rug pulled? They've taken the opportunity for us to push off of the board by bumping him up to 9.5 from 9. I mean, he could still do it at 9.5, right? Betting public smashing the under on 9.5, though. So we could go against the grain and go against the public and still take the over. And I wouldn't be mad at that. Oh, well. Oh, well. You guys are saying PrizePicks is watching the stream? Well, listen, a lot of people are probably watching the stream. Right? Maybe there is somebody out there watching. Who knows? More power to them. Thanks for watching. If you are watching PrizePicks, thank you for watching. Hopefully you've slapped the like button as well. Appreciate you watching. All right. As if our jobs weren't hard enough trying to find these good player props daily, right? That's the last thing we would need is somebody spying in on what we're talking about, right? Anyway, let's hope that's not the case. Bradley Beal, 6.5 assists. I'd like to think that PrizePicks, by the way, has a lot better things to do than to watch me, little old Curry here, talk about player props. I'd like to think that they all have, much more important things to handle. Like getting those tacos made. Where are them tacos at? I'm ready for the next taco. How about you? You guys ready for some tacos? I can't wait to see what we get today. Anyway, Bradley Beal, 6.5 assists. We've talked about his points. We've talked about his rebounds. And now we're talking about his assists. That's points, rebounds, assists. PRA, right? Maybe his PRA is in play. Like I said, we'll talk about it if he comes up. But anyway, Bradley Beal at 6.5 dimes. The last 10 games, 70%. The last 5 games, 80%. Averaging 7.4 per game. Let's go look at the matchup here for Mr. Beal. He's going up against the Clippers. Clippers giving up, just 2.9 assists per game to opposing shooting guards. Let's round it up and call it 3. 3 is still a lot less than 6.5. So tough matchup for Beal in both the points and assist category. Shooting guards being clamped up, being clamped down. Just being clamped in general by this Los Angeles Clippers team. Now we go to the point guard spot. They're giving up 8.5 dimes to point guards. So Dinwiddie, more of the point guard. Beal, more of the shooting guard. But they kind of both are like combo guards in my book. So 8.5 assists per game given up to point guards. And then they're giving up just under 3 assists per game to shooting guards. So you kind of combine those numbers and you could figure about 11 to 12 assists are given up to backcourts, right? You could think about it that way, to guards, not point guards or shooting guards, just guards in general, about 11 to 12 assists per game. So maybe there's some wiggle room here for Beal. Let's go take a look at the projection using the action projection tools. I got Bradley Beal projected at 5.6 dimes. 5.6. Guys, we're seeing him being bet under 6.5 assists at minus 150 odds over on BetMGM. They are betting the under on Bradley Beal, minus 150 under. Scary. When there's that many people slapping the under on Bradley Beal, it's a little worrisome. Not sure if I love it. SS, we will definitely probably talk about some Rozier. We will get to those in just a little bit. All right, we'll get to those in just a little bit. Your favorite picks, your favorite plays. We already talked about DeJounte Murray's assist at 9.5. Well, he was at 9. Now he's at 9.5. His backcourt mate, not up on the board, but Derek White at 5.5 assists, 70% hit rate for him. So if you could get Derek White somewhere, you maybe want to consider him. I don't see this guy up on the board, but Ant Edwards at 3.5 assists, 60% hit rate could be worth a look. We already talked about Beal's assists. What about Dinwiddie's assists? Not terrible. He's at 5.5 today. Over the last 10 games, 60% hit rate. We're seeing 60% over the last 5 as well. So maybe he's worth looking at. And this guy here, D'Angelo Russell's been doing a pretty good job at dropping some dimes. He's been kind of hit or miss though. 12 assists upside against Golden State, 10 against Brooklyn. Now, coincidentally, my man D'Lo here played both for the Warriors and for the Nets at one point. So maybe he was just on his revenge game stuff. Maybe he was just on some revenge game type of stuff. But he's also showing pretty good form over the last 10 games. So let's switch it up here. We've talked assists, rebounds, and points so far. You guys have been clamoring for the PRA. Are you loving the points, rebounds, and assists, by the way, chat? Has this become one of your new favorite ways to play on PrizePicks, the PRA? I think for me it has been too. Because unlike fantasy points, you don't have to worry about turnovers, right? Which is kind of cool. You guys are liking some PRA? Love it, love it, love it. Cool, 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 cool. Well, let's take a look at the last 10 games here and see who's been hitting their PRA. I won't talk too much about Kyle Kuzma because we were already kind of down on his rebounds. His PRA has been down over the last couple games as well. So for me, like I said, don't be fooled by the hit rates. He's probably more of an underplay for me today. His teammate, KCP, another guy who kind of falls into that bucket. He's going to show a high hit rate when it comes to his last 10 games in PRA, but things have been a little bit more dicey here over the last 5 games with the Wizards getting fully healthy. So I think he's out of question for me. Do we trust Dorian Finney-Smith? Dorian Finney-Smith at 15.5 PRA. Over the last 10 games, 70% hit rate. Last 5 games, 60% hit rate. He's shown 29 PRA upside, 20 PRA upside in 2 out of his last 5 games. So he's going up against Golden State tonight. Let's just go take a look here at the Golden State Warriors versus opposing small forwards. Kind of get an idea how many points, rebounds, and assists over the last 7 games that they've been giving up. Well, we look at the points category. Small forwards, ugly, 16.8 points. Rebounds, ugly, 6.7. And assists, 2.8. So all 3 categories showing up in this ugly little orange color, which means it's a difficult matchup in the PRA. So I don't know that I completely trust or love Dorian Finney-Smith, but I'm curious, and I'm sure you are too. What is his projection? They got him projected for 19 PRA. He's at 16.5 out on your favorite sports books, where he's being bet to go under 16.5, minus 130, minus 135 odds, respectively. Dorian Finney-Smith. I don't know, buddy. I don't know. All right, here he is. You guys have been waiting for it. I know we've liked some Bradley Beal PRA in the past. He's at 32.5 PRA in what looks like a very difficult matchup in both the points and assist column for Bradley Beal. His rebounds, not a bad spot for rebounds. But I could see his points and assists being a bit of a struggle. But over the last 10 games for Bradley Beal, he's covered 34.5 PRA, so 2 PRA higher in 7 out of 10 games. Now at 32.5 is where we're getting him on PrizePicks. He's covered that number in 3 out of 5 over the last 5 games, so a 60% hit rate. So we'll go back to the shooting guard spot. We'll look at the Clippers once again, giving up just 15.4 points per game to shooting guards, 7.6 rebounds. So again, that's a good number to shooting guards, and 2.9 assists per game to shooting guards. So the category that really shines in terms of shooting guards and this matchup against the Clippers is going to be his rebounds. But you guys want to know about his PRA, so let's look at it. I got him projected for 37 PRA. Now he's at 33.5 on 2 different sports books. So the projections love him. I mean, he's over 32.5 by 4.5 points, rebounds, and assists. And he's at 33.5 out on a couple different books, so we're getting a point of value on this PRA prop. Minus 150 betting favorite to go over 33.5. So the betting public smashing the over at 33.5, meaning the 32.5 could definitely be in play here. But if it doesn't hit, it's because of the matchup. All right? I warned you. Maybe we've got previous game logs. Let's take a look at those. We go Bradley Beal versus the Clippers. Logs. This is StatMuse, by the way, in case you've never laid eyes on this site before. StatMuse. So no previous game logs for Bradley Beal this season, from this season against the Clippers. So this is all last season. He had 33, 7, and 3 against the Clippers back on March 4th, which was last season. On February 23rd, he had 28, 4, and 10. So both of those numbers good enough for the over, but that was last season. Now, previous to that, we got to go all the way back to 2019, which for me starts to become irrelevant. That's too far back. So he did cover his PRA of 32.5 2 times last season against the Los Angeles Clippers. So there's a shot, you know. If you take the over here, you're not completely dead in the water by any means. It just looks like on paper, it's going to be tough. Who are some other PRA beasts? Well, we've talked DeJounte Murray plenty. I think he's also in line tonight for a PRA overplay. Are we going to get him up on the board for PR? Come on. There he is. Oh, Lord, I was about to have a conniption. 38.5 PRA is the number for DeJounte Murray. Listen, at 39.5 over his last 10 games, he's covered out of 7 out of 10. So a 70% hit rate at 39.5. So this guy's clearly in play at 38.5 PRA, 47 against OKC, 47 against Brooklyn, and 40 against Philly. We talked about how mushy-gushy this matchup is against this Houston Rockets team. We click back and look. Listen, 32, 10, and 11 the last time he took the court against Houston, about 13 days ago. Now, last season, a little different situation. You had DeMar DeRozan in the mix, right? He's taken on a lot bigger role for this Spurs team this year. So I'm not really going to go back and look at last season or any of the previous matchups. But the fact that this season, 32, 10, and 11 is what he was able to put up against Houston, for me, makes this very much in play. Very much in play. Now, again, we'll go take a look at the PRA given up by the Houston Rockets here over the last 7 games. 26 points allowed, 7.7 rebounds allowed, and over 9 assists allowed per game. Great matchup here. Great matchup for Murray. Let's pull his PRA number up. He's projected for 36.4, which is less than 38.5, surprisingly. But 2 different sites have him up as high as 39.5 PRA. So we're getting a soft number here at 38.5. And anytime you're going to give me a point of value on a guy in a smash spot, I will gladly accept your offer. And I think maybe you guys should too. All right. What other options are we talking about here? What else do we have on the board? Well, we got some 3-point takers and makers to talk about. So let's do that. Keldon Johnson's not up on the board. San Antonio Spurs swingman. If he's at 1.5 3-point makes somewhere, you should probably take the over, because in the last 10 games, he's covered 1.5 3-point makes in 9 out of 10 games, a 90% hit rate. And tonight, of course, he gets the Houston Rockets, sky-high totals, close competitive spread. So you should take the over on some Keldon Johnson over 1.5 threes. Marcus Smart at 1.5 threes, also been covering this at a very high clip. 80% of the last 10 games, he has covered 1.5 threes. We talked a little bit about KCP. He's one of the only guys with a high hit rate who's up on the board. He's coming off of a bad game against Boston. Do we think maybe he's in line for a bounce back spot? It doesn't look like, at least over the last 5 games, that he has 2 bad shooting nights in a row. So he had 0 against Portland, came back with 2 the next game against Philly. Had 1 against Brooklyn, came back with 2 the next night against Toronto. And then he had 0 against Boston. Maybe he gets back on the over train at just 1.5 3-point makes. Let's go look at the matchup here. Talked about his points a little bit. Maybe he's in line for an over on his points prop. Well, in order for him to hit his points prop, he would have to hit a couple of threes, right? Fair to say? Listen, the Clippers are giving up 3.1 3-point makes over the last 7 games, which means that's the 7th most. It's a very good matchup here for KCP on paper. The game isn't played on paper, though. They got to get out there and get it done. All we can do is try to make our best educated guess. Make an informed decision here. Well, I'm informing you that the Clippers are giving up over 3 3-point makes per game over the last 7 games to opposing small forwards. And that KCP doesn't typically have 2 games back-to-back where he's shooting poorly. Okay? So that is the information that I am imparting upon you today. Let's go ahead and pull a projection up for him. Got him projected for 2.1 3-point makes. And at 1.5 3-point makes, he is a minus 130 betting favorite by the public to go over 1.5. So maybe Kentavious Caldwell-Pope gets it done tonight. Any others worth talking about here? I'm looking at the list. If you could get D'Angelo Russell at 3.5 threes, he's made that in 70% of his last 10 games. Doug McDermott also up there at 1.5 3-point makes. Both he and Keldon Johnson in a good spot tonight. You could take the over or consider taking it at 1.5 3-point makes. Ant Edwards also not up on the board, but at 3.5 3-point makes, covering that number in 70% of his last 10 games. We're not getting Aaron Gordon on the board. We're not getting Eric Gordon on the board. We're not getting Bradley Beal. Listen, they're keeping a lot of the good 3-point props away from us. Probably the one with the highest hit rate, the best of the bunch. Good matchup, this guy, KCP. All right, so I won't go any further because a lot of these high hit rate plays are not up on the board. We don't talk a ton about blocks and steals. Let's just see if any of them are standing out. Listen, this is a very volatile way to play props. Very unpredictable here. Let's just see if we've got anybody that's worth mentioning. Looking through some of the last 10 game hit rates. Yeah, I don't know that I'm completely in love with any of these. Not really. Because there's only 4 of them, though, what I can do real quick is just kind of get you some projections on them in case you are interested in playing them. I've played one, and it was Rudy Gobert the other night. My man had like 1 steal, and he was at 2.5 steals and blocks, so he did not cover. Did not cover. I got LaMelo Ball projected for 2 blocks and steals, and he's a -135 betting favorite to go over 1.5 against Toronto. All right. I got Zubac projected for 1.6 blocks and steals versus the Wizards tonight. I don't really trust him because seems like second half comes around and he doesn't get quite as many minutes. Cade Cunningham, got him projected for 1.7 blocks and steals, and he's a betting favorite to go over at -130. And last but not least, we got Rob Williams projected for 3.4 blocks and steals, and at 2.5, betting favorite to go over. All right. So that's it. What do you guys have for me? Hit me with your props, your picks, your plays. Like I said, if it's like must have answered, like you need your question answered and it's like urgent type of thing, Super Chat's going to be your best friend. I can't get to everybody's question. Unfortunately, I wish I could, but I can't. I'm one man. Aaron Rodgers is reporting that PrizePicks is running it back with the taco bar. So if you're familiar with Taco Tuesday and what they did last week, they had something set up called the taco bar. They had basically a list of players. So you started off the voting by deciding which 2 players you wanted to vote on. So last week it ended up being Karl Anthony Towns and Cade Cunningham. So then once we decided on the 2 players and voted on the 2 players, then they allowed you to vote on which prop you wanted to take on those 2 players. So it ended up being Karl Anthony Towns' points. It ended up being Cade Cunningham's assists that were both reduced. And I took the over on both, and both of them ended up hitting. So they're running the taco bar back. They're running it back. Who would be at the top of your list if you could vote on a player and have one of their props reduced? For me, it'd be maybe like DeJounte Murray. I think he'd be a popular one, given the circumstances. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Joel Embiid points. He's going up against New Orleans tonight. Maybe maybe Jokic could be interesting going up against the Detroit Pistons. He should smash them. All right, let's talk about some of the picks and plays that you guys are liking here. Yeah, let's reduce some Jokic PRA, right? That would be a sweet spot. I've seen Terry Rozier's assist prop mentioned several times, several times throughout the stream. So let's go ahead and talk about some Terry Rozier assists. Now, he did not come up on the list here as far as a high hit rate over the last 10 games. For whatever reason. Don't know why that is. Let's take a look and see what his hit rate is over the last 10. Guess I'm just not getting them for whatever reason on props.cash at the moment. But yeah, Terry Rozier at 4.5 assists, definitely worth talking about because he's covered in 5 straight games, and he's not just barely covering, he's smashing 6, 7, 10, 9, and 7 assists respectively here for Terry Rozier. So I could see why you guys are mentioning him the way that you are. There we go. I just refreshed, by the way, props.cash. He is now up on props.cash. He is 60% over his last 10 games at covering 4.5 dimes. But over the last 5 games is where he really shines with that 100% hit rate. So let's go take a look at this matchup here against Toronto. The Raptors giving up about 5 assists per game, which is coincidentally exactly what we would need out of Terry Rozier. At least 5 dimes. At least 5 dimes. So they're giving up exactly 5 dimes to opposing shooting guards. I like to also look at the point guard spot because of the interchangeability of a lot of these players. You know, it's becoming more and more positionless, as I've talked about in previous shows. Raptors giving up over 8 dimes per game to opposing point guards. So there's definitely some assist upside here, whether you look at Rozier as the point guard or the shooting guard. So let's head over to the assist category. Rozier's projected assists are 4.8, which is more than 4.5, leading us to believe that the lean should definitely be toward the over here. And then 2 different books, 2 different sites. He is a betting favorite, -135 and -120, respectively, to go over 4.5 assists. Would he be a candidate for you for a Taco Tuesday discount? Would you take Terry Rozier's discounted assist at like 3.5? That'd be a pretty tasty taco, I think. You're giving me Rozier at 3.5 assists? Sign me up for that. Sign me up for that. Sammy's up in here. One of the newest to the Patreon community. Shout out to you, Mr. Patel. You're liking some Christian Woods. Points, rebounds, and assists. He's going up against the San Antonio Spurs tonight, right? Let's take a look at Christian Wood. 32.5 PRA has been pretty good here for Mr. Christian Wood. Over the last 5 games, got an 80% hit rate. Looking at the last 10, not quite as good, but still decent, I guess you could say. 50%, kind of a coin flip. So the last 5 is where things have really shined here for Christian Wood, getting the job done. Now, the last time he played the Spurs, he had 35 PRA, so he covered back on January 12th with 35 points, rebounds, and assists. We can go take a look at this matchup. Wood has been the center for the San Antonio Spurs. So let's go on down here and see what they're giving up. Ooh, very nice. 27 points per game, over 27 points per game over the last 7 games to centers, over 18, nearly 19 rebounds per game to opposing centers, and then 2.8 assists. Not so great there. So he's going to probably butter his bread in the points and rebounds department going up against the Spurs tonight. So the Spurs giving up 27.2. That is the 7th most points per game. And they're giving up the 2nd most rebounds per game to the center spot. So Christian Wood's PRA definitely worth considering. He covered in the last meeting against San Antonio. He's covered in 4 out of 5. And he gets another great matchup here against the Spurs tonight. Christian Wood's PRA projection, 32.6. And we're seeing him at betting favorites to go over on 2 different books, -125 and -120 respectively. So Christian Wood, PRA, could be a look. I like it. I like it. Killer Props is saying Christian Wood just scores and boards like crazy. He does get into some foul trouble, though, against solid centers. Do we consider Jakob Poeltl to be a solid center? I'd say he's good. Not great by any means. Decent. Decent. Dan, we talked about some Jared Vanderbilt to start the show at 7.5 points. He's not a crazy, sexy kind of name, right? Jared Vanderbilt. He just doesn't get a lot of volume when it comes to shots. You know, he could get it done. Jared Vanderbilt has shown that he is competent when scoring 8 or more points. So, MF June saying Mason Plumlee PRA. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one either. I have very rarely have I clicked anything Mason Plumlee this season. But you guys are talking about it. I'm seeing the name pop up here. Mason Plumlee PRA. Do we have to go here? I mean, we don't have to, but like on a slate where there's 9 games, 18 different teams, and a whole bunch of props to choose from, do we have to put our money in on Mason Plumlee? Or can we find and do better? I think we can find and do better. But listen, Mason Plumlee at 14.5 PRA, last 5 games, has covered in 4 out of 5 at an 80% clip. So he's going up against the Toronto Raptors tonight. Let's take a look at Toronto in the last 7 games. They're giving up about 18.8 points to centers, 14 rebounds to centers, and about 2 assists. Now he only needs 15 PRA here. So despite what looks like a difficult matchup against the Raptors where they're giving up less than 19 points, almost 14 rebounds, and over 2 assists. Listen, we don't need a whole lot out of Plumlee. We don't need a big, 30, 40 PRA number out of him. Let's pull up his projection here. 16.9. We can round it up, call it 17. 17 PRA versus 14.5. Maybe he's worth a shot. I'm just saying, big slate. Big slate, lots of other options out there. You don't have to go here if you don't want to. But projections love him. And he doesn't have a very high number here that he has to hit. Some of you folks are saying, fade Plumlee. Some of you folks are saying, LOL Mason Plumlee. Yeah, could be a sweat for Mason Plumlee. Are we going to sweat Mason Plumlee? Carlos is good on Mason Plumlee. We ain't taking Mason Plumlee. MF June's fading Mason Plumlee. We do not trust Mason effing Plumlee, fam. All right. Donato is mentioning LaMelo Ball's assist. He says a buddy of his took LaMelo Ball's assist. He's just wondering if it's a good look. Well, listen, LaMelo, always a decent play when it comes to his assist prop. He's at 7.5. He is coming off of a bad game. And you know me, I look at those opportunities when a player's coming off of a bad game to go back to that prop, especially when a player has shown good form, has an average like LaMelo of 7.6. It could be a good time for us to bounce back, right? For LaMelo Ball's assist prop to bounce back. 8, 8, 10, and 8. The previous 4 games, and then he had just 4 against Atlanta. So I don't think LaMelo's a bad play. I do think Terry Rozier, though, might be a better play. Just showing his ability to cover 4.5 assists at a greater clip than LaMelo has shown at covering 7.5 assists. But let's go look at the matchup here. I think it was a pretty good one when we looked at Toronto earlier in the point guard spot. Looking at assists specifically, Toronto giving up about 8.2 per game. 8.2. So might be a little bit of a struggle for LaMelo Ball. Let's go pull up his prop. Got him projected for 8 assists. So that's enough to get him over the hump. At 7.5 assists, he is a betting favorite on a couple of different books at minus 145 to go under. Now, you can always do this too. You can go back to StatMuse. And you could go LaMelo Ball versus the Raptors logs. Get an idea how many times he's covered 7.5 assists versus Toronto. Well, no previous game logs from this season, but 3 games from last season, he covered in 1 out of 3. Had 11 assists back on January 14th, nearly a year ago. And then he flopped hard on 2 other games. So there you go. I don't know that I trust it as much as I trust Terry Rozier. David coming through strong with the super chat. He's got 3 plays that he's liking right now for points, rebounds, and assists. He's liking Karl Anthony Towns to go over. He's got Saddiq Bey. Do we trust Saddiq Bey, though? Ooh. I'm going to have to forget everything I've ever known about Saddiq Bey recently to get on board with that. Saddiq Bey over fantasy points and Furkan Korkmaz over fantasy points. And he loves that one. And he's liking some Kessler Edwards fantasy points over. Mac B saying, Bey is a no for me. He has burnt me multiple times. Aaron Rodgers saying he's not trusting Bey. Desmond saying he's never touching Bey again. Never trusting Bey again. Man, never's a long time. Let's take a look at some of these other ones, though. Some of these other ones. Specifically, Karl Anthony Towns points, rebounds, and assists. Now, he's another frustrating player, right? Cat, with all the talent in the world, with all the ability in the world that Karl Anthony Towns has, every time I play him, it always feels like a sweat for one of the more talented, one of the most talented, can I say top 10, maybe even top 5, borderline top 5 best bigs in the league? Why does it always feel like a struggle with Karl Anthony Towns? Like a sweat? Why? Why must you stress me? I know you can get it done, big fella. I know you got all the skills in the world. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. He's going up against Portland. I know the matchup against Portland is a good one. All right. I know it's a good one. Portland giving up over 24 points per game, 13 rebounds per game, and nearly 5 assists per game. So some quick math on that. That's like 37, 42 PRA to opposing centers. 42 to 43 PRA given up over the last 7 games to opposing centers. So the matchup is definitely a favorable one. Favorable. Let's go a little further here. We'll go look at his projection for PRA. Towns and Randle. Julius Randle's another one. I played Julius Randle's PRA last night. Got off to a great start. No Jared Allen, right? No Jared Allen. No Lauri Markkanen. Like the front court for the Cavs, pretty thin. Who's going to stop Julius Randle? I think he gets in his own way sometimes. But I kind of throw him and Karl Anthony Towns kind of in the same bucket. Super talented players. We've seen what they can do. Then they like fall in love with dropping dimes and shooting 3-pointers. It's like, get your big ass down in the paint, son. Get your big ass down there in the freaking paint and get me some points and some rebounds. That's all I want. I'm not a, complicated man. I just want you to get down there, use that size and athleticism, get me some points and some rebounds. Stop playing shooting guard out there at 7 feet tall. You big loser. All right, sorry. Got off on a tangent there. Karl Anthony Towns, Julius Randle, though. Frustrating. 34.5 PRA, though. We got him on 2 different books, 2 different sites. Betting favorite to go over on both. -130, -125. Projected for 41.7 PRA. We round it up, call it 42 PRA. Yes, everything is aligning here for Karl Anthony Towns. It's looking like a good one, right? Looking like a good play. Let's go look this. I almost called him a bum. Lord forgive me. Didn't mean to even think that thought. Karl Anthony Towns versus the Blazers logs. I need to forgive you, Karl Anthony Towns. That's my problem. I'm holding on to some stuff, I just need to forgive this guy, don't I? Just like I'm going to have to learn to forgive Julius Randle for what he did to me last night. These guys have hurt me, and I need to publicly let it go, don't I? I forgive you, and I'm ready to move on and move forward with Karl Anthony Towns tonight. All right, let's look at it. Listen, he played the Blazers 12, 12, 21. 35 minutes of court time, had 23, 10, and 4. That's 37 PRA. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. He covered against the Blazers. I'm feeling a little bit better. Are you guys feeling better yet? I'm already feeling a little bit better. I've forgiven Karl Anthony Towns for the hurt he's caused me, the pain that he's caused me in previous games. I've seen a projection that's a lot more than 34.5. I've seen a game log from this season where he's covered against this same Portland Trail Blazers team. 37 PRA. All right. Listen, David, my arm's been twisted. I'm a changed man. My heart is cleansed of all of the pain that Karl Anthony Towns has caused me. I will get on board with you on Karl Anthony Towns, but I ain't touching Saddiq Bey, damn it. I don't care how many super chats you leave. I ain't doing it. That's one guy. Look, rest in peace to Meatloaf. In case you don't know who Meatloaf is. Rock singer, all right, just died recently. He said he would do anything for love, but he won't do that. I'll do anything for David when it comes to these super chats, but I won't do Saddiq Bey. I'm not playing Saddiq Bey, man. Chat, you guys can do what you want. David's sharp. David leaves us good picks and plays, has a great track record. I am not knocking David here. I am knocking Saddiq Bey. It's not that I don't trust David. It's that I don't trust Sadiq Bey. Hell, I might trust Furkan Korkmaz more than I trust Sadiq Bey. Let's take a look at him. You're liking Korkmaz over fantasy points. He had 20. Oh, we're looking at PRA now. We're looking at PRA. Let me get on the fantasy points here. Maybe Furkan Korkmaz at 22.5 fantasy points is a way to go. Now his PRA charts looked oddly familiar to his fantasy score here. So maybe either are in play, fantasy points or PRA. Anyway, Korkmaz, 22.5 fantasy points, has covered in 2 out of his last 5 games. He's going up against the Pelicans. I think the spread on this game is like 8.5, maybe even 9.5. It's really going to depend on if Brandon Ingram's in or not, right? Might be a first half only play is kind of what I'm getting at. We go find the New Orleans Pelicans. They're giving up over 45 fantasy points per game. That's the 5th most to opposing small forwards. So if you've got Tybal and you've got Maxey in the backcourt, then Korkmaz probably your 3, your small forward, right? So New Orleans giving up over 45 fantasy points per game. Plenty of ceiling here. Plenty of upside at just 22.5 fantasy points for Korkmaz to get it done. So let's go take a look at my man Korkmaz here. Let's pull up some projections. I got my own little projection models that I've built using Fantasy Labs here. And we've got the FanDuel projections pulled up. Let's take a look at Korkmaz. Got him projected for 26.2 fantasy points. So yes, I feel more comfortable about Korkmaz. Now, while we're here, because you did mention Bey, I'm not going to sell you short on your super chat. Got Bey projected for 27 fantasy points. He's at 23.5, gang. He has covered in his last 3 games. All right. The last game was against Denver. He barely covered at 23.9 fantasy points. That's tonight's opponent, the Denver Nuggets. So chat, maybe we need to forgive Sadiq Bey too. All right. Maybe we forgive him. And the last one you mentioned was Kessler Edwards. Again, not a household name, but without Kyrie and KD, somebody's going to have to step up. Maybe it's Kessler Edwards. 20.5 fantasy points. He's covered in 3 out of 5. A 60% hit rate on Edwards. I've got him projected for 23.7. So definitely still an edge here by a couple of fantasy points. 3 fantasy points. Not as big of an edge as maybe Korkmaz or Bey. But I think Kessler Edwards is interesting. I don't know that I love him. Again, it's one of those names where you just got to kind of pinch your nose and, right? Just knock it back if you're going to play him. Kind of like Mason Plumlee. We talked about Mason Plumlee earlier too. Anyway, there you go, David. There you go. Thanks for the super chat, by the way. My man Anthony's also coming through. Let's find, I'm sure there's a message attached to this somewhere, Anthony. I'm sure there's a message attached to this somewhere. Let's find that. Anthony dropping a, I don't know if that was a super chat, a sticker, or what, but he's liking some Will Barton points over, Luka under points, and Christian Wood over on points. Carlos saying, David's super chat lineup would have me super stressed. Yeah, I agree with you, man. That again, those are a group of names that you just don't feel sexy taking, right? You don't feel great about it. Let's look at some of these picks that my man Anthony has bestowed upon us. Starting with Will Barton over on points. Will Barton, Denver Nuggets swingman. He is at 13.5 points. He's taken on Detroit tonight. He scored 14, barely getting over the hump, but he did score more than 13.5 points just one game ago against this same Detroit Pistons team. Had 27 against Memphis, the game prior to that. But then we go back to the 3 previous game logs. It's been a little bit wishy-washy, up or down, right? So looking at this matchup here against Detroit, Will Barton, think we call him a shooting guard. We'll look at the small forward position as well, though. Detroit giving up the first most points per game to the shooting guard position at over 24 points per game. Now, here's one that I'm starting to feel a little bit better about. Will Barton, 13.5 points. The Detroit Pistons giving up over 24 points. Let's look at the small forward spot. Detroit giving up a healthy 21 points per game to small forwards. So whichever position you want to categorize Will Barton as, a shooting guard, a small forward, hey, tomato, doesn't matter. All right, 20 plus points given up by Detroit to both wing positions. Let's go pull a projection up here for Trill Will, my man Will Barton. I got him projected for 14.9. We round that up, call it 15 points. And then I'm seeing him as high as 14.5 points on some of these sports books out there. So we're getting him at 13.5. Maybe there's a little value going on, a little value action on my man Will Barton. So I can get down with Will Barton at 13.5 points. I ain't mad at that. Not mad at that. The other one that you mentioned was Luka Doncic under on points. Whew. Listen, I took Luka under on points versus the Phoenix Suns a few nights ago. Didn't work out for me. I think he was at 25.5 that night. Ended up with 28 against Phoenix. Tonight, he's at 26.5. Has covered 26.5 points in 3 straight games. So you're thinking, maybe this is time for Luka to put in a subpar performance in the scoring department. Maybe. The matchup against Golden State, I want to say just off of the top of the dome here, could be a difficult one. Let's go find out how many points per game they're giving up to opposing point guards. 18.6, the third fewest points per game to opposing point guards over the last 7 games. So I kind of see what you're seeing here. I'm kind of getting on board with the under on Luka Doncic at 26.5. Let's dig a little deeper, guys. Let's just not settle, right? We got to dig just a little bit more. I got him projected at 28.3, which is more than 26.5. We're looking at him across 4 different books. I'm seeing 1, 2, 3 out of 4 sites where they're betting the under on Luka Doncic at 26.5. And then to take it even further for you folks, Luka Doncic points versus Warriors logs. Using StatMuse to figure this out. 26.5 points. Let's look at the hit rates from this season. Okay, he's only played them 1 time. Played 34 minutes, had 26 points, fell short. Lost to the hook. If you would have taken the over there, you would have lost to the hook. Had 39 last season back on April 27th, 42 last season back on February 6th, had 27 back on February 4th, just 20. Now we're getting back to 2020 now. January 14th, he had 20. Now we're going all the way back to 2019. 12/28/19, he had 31, 35. So you kind of get an idea here. We won't go all the way back. But let's just say over the last 5 games, he's covered in 3 out of 5 and came dangerously close this season to covering 26.5, finishing with 26. So the matchup on paper obviously looks like a tough one. Golden State giving up just the 3rd fewest points over the last 7 games to opposing point guards. Now for me, if Klay is in, Klay's a good defender. He's not playing a whole ton of minutes yet, but Klay's a good defender. Do you think that helps or hurts this Luka Doncic under prop? I would like to think that maybe it helps it. If we're going to go under on 26.5 points for Luka Doncic with Klay Thompson being a pretty good defender, maybe that helps keep Luka under 26.5 points. But we don't know yet. We don't know about Klay Thompson's status. He's a game time decision. And yes, we've talked plenty about Christian Wood, liked his PRA. So if we're liking the PRA, then we have to also like the points on Christian Wood. But you're liking just the points on Wood. You're not wanting to go PRA here. You're wanting to go purely points. Now the last 2 games, not great. Not great for Christian Wood at 19.5. Has went under in 2 difficult games. Okay, Utah, tough team. Golden State, tough team. But we look back at January 12th. He faced the Spurs there, had 23 points. Are you guys trusting the PRA for Christian Wood more or the points for Christian Wood more? Let's look at the game logs again for Christian Wood's PRA. He's at 32.5. A little higher hit rate when it comes to PRA. A little higher hit rate, which is why I bring up the points or points, rebounds, and assists for Wood. San Antonio, again, giving up 27.2 points and 18, let's call it 19 rebounds. 27 points and 19 rebounds to opposing centers. That is the second most rebounds and the 7th most points. For me, I think I'm riding PRA here with Christian Wood. I think I'm riding the PRA with Christian Wood. I got him projected for 19.5 points, which is exactly where his line is at 19.5. The PRA, 32.6, slightly more than the 32.5. I just think that there's maybe more upside, potentially. They very well both could hit. There's also that possibility as well. So there you go. We're about an hour and a half in, guys. Hopefully we've talked about plenty of plays that you guys are liking. Plenty of plays that you guys are liking. I think we've uncovered some very, very juicy picks, juicy plays. If you guys are liking what I'm doing, please let me know by leaving a like. That is the greatest sign, confirmation for me that I'm doing something good here for you folks. Hit the like button. We'll keep this thing rolling day in and day out. All right. Mac B's talking about Patreon and Discord is the way to go. Got some solid guys helping every night to get that bag. I appreciate the shout out there. For sure. You can join in February. Yeah, you can join February. It does make me a little anxious to take the unders on guys like Luka Doncic. Not always the best move. I agree. Kelly leaving some love from Tennessee. Appreciate the love, Kelly. Like I said, it's not just dudes up in here. We got dudettes too. We got lords and we've got ladies. Shout out to you, Kelly. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think what we need to do, guys, is we need to make sure we're in the PrizePicks Discord. We're voting on these tacos today. Let's find ourselves 2 very good players and very good tacos. And I think that'll help us get to the green tonight too. Taco Tuesday. Let's make sure we take advantage. But I'm going to get up out of here. All right, 90 minutes in. I'm going to continue the conversation, the research over in the private confines of the NBA channel inside Discord. You can get access to that by signing up to Patreon. Just a bunch of people having some fun in there, doing some player prop research. Nothing life-changing, nothing too crazy, all right? But if you want to be a part of a community who's all about player props, research, helping each other win, hopefully my community is the one for you. You can check out the link down in the description below. But I'm going to get up out of here, man. I'm going to get up out of here. Good luck to you tonight. And we'll keep the vibes going over in Discord. Peace.